The 1958 Canadian federal elections were held as snap ones on March the 31st, 1958. After John Diefenbaker had the parliament resolved, he capitalized on his early surge of popularity, promising more prosperity to Canadians. He had actually declared during the, if I remember correctly, during the 1957 federal parliamentary election campaign, I don't care about your politics, in other words, their political affiliation. The issue is as simple as whether you people want your jobs back. He also appealed to quite many ethnic Canadian voters because he was of mixed German-Scottish background. His original family name actually had been Diefenbacher. He also spoke in somewhat mystical terms of the future development of northern Canada. And that contrasted with the rather academic lecturing style political speeches of his opponent, Lester Pearson, the new Liberal leader. What played out well in academia, after all, he had been a university lecturer before his political career, did not play out well in the political stump speeches, although he would gradually learn to improve his speaking style and his political performance, of course. Anyway, the Progressive Conservatives won a massive landslide victory with 53.7% of the popular vote, or about 3,911,000 votes, and 208 seats out of 265. In terms of the percentage of seats overall in the Canadian House of Commons, this remains the largest, the most massive victory, as far as I can remember. The Liberals were reduced to just 33.8% of the popular vote, or 2,460,048 seats. The Cooperative Commonwealth Federation was badly mauled, collapsing to just 8 seats. And to add insult to injury, its leader, Major James Caldwell, lost his bid for re-election in the Rosetown-Biggar electoral district. Only about 692,000 people supported the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, which would then merge with the Canadian Labour Congress to create the New Democratic Party, which remains Canada's leading social democratic party to this day at the federal level. The social creditors were wiped out of the parliament, losing all of their seats and receiving only 2.6% of the vote, or 189,000 votes. During the next 4 years, however, Diefenbaker proved, according to a biographer of Canadian prime ministers from John A. Macdonald to Brian Mulroney, Mr. Jim Lotz, that mystics don't make good managers. He sought, like a tribal chief, a consensus or a broad agreement among his cabinet ministers before he decided what to do, and he seemed to have great difficulty making decisions, so he tended to postpone them. His proudest achievement was a rather symbolic one, the Canadian Bill of Rights. Although as an ordinary law passed by the Canadian Federal Parliament, it could be overridden either by the Parliament itself or by any provincial legislature. Although the Canadian economy did improve to some extent, the Canadian dollar fell compared to the American dollar, and then these comical Diefen dollars started to be distributed across Canada. Diefenbaker had got along well with the old US President Dwight Eisenhower, but his young successor, John Diefenbaker, had a clearly more distant relationship with his young successor, John Kennedy, had a clearly more distant relationship with Prime Minister Diefenbaker. The two had difficulty getting along well. Diefenbaker even criticized Kennedy for mispronouncing his last name as Diefenbacher. The voter turnout was 79.4%. One Liberal Labourite was elected. But none other of the fringe parties or fringe groups or independence candidates were elected.